All right, well, let's kick this off and get started. I know there may be some people jumping on towards the in a couple minutes, but we're going to respect your time and get started. If you are interested, I have my TidyCal link up in the top of the chat. I'll probably post that up there again at the end for people who come on towards the end if you're interested in booking a call with me for any reason. But today we're going to talk about helping your employees win. And you may think like, well, what does that mean? And what that means is exactly how it sounds. We want our employees to win. So whether you are the owner, the CEO, or the top manager in your organization or your business, there's likely going to be people underneath you that you are managing, your direct reports. And how can you help them win? And that idea, I've been questioned on that. Like, Todd, why do we? I mean, that sounds so, rah rah. Like, why do we want to help our employees win? Well, they're your employees, and you're all working towards the same goal, I would hope. And so that's very important to have everybody going in the same direction, doing the same things, and working towards the same goals. So that's the first thing that I want to start with. Having a shared mission, vision, and goals for your organization that are clearly stated and that everybody's aware of. I was doing some work with a local church on leadership, and we asked them what the mission and vision of the church was, and nobody knew what it was. And it was like, oh, I guess we should know what that means. Yes, you absolutely should. I've seen another client that I've worked with last summer took the mission and the vision, literally put it on, I'm going to use this little piece of paper, literally put it on a piece of paper and then taped it to the wall just above the time clock. So when everybody punched in or punched out, there was the mission and the vision right there. And that guided everything that business was involved in doing. And I kind of coached this owner to say, have your employees review that like once a week or make that part of your daily language. That's really important. When you have vocabulary, phrases, and ideas that you want to really be instilled in your organization or your business, make sure you use them in your common language daily if you can. Now, I'm not going, Pepper, you're on the screen in front of me right now. I'll just pick on you. You don't have to say anything. Don't worry about it. But I'm not going to walk up to Pepper and say, Pepper, what is our mission and our vision today? And make sure that you're telling us what our mission and our vision is. No, but in my daily goings on that I'm dealing with Pepper and we're going to talk about something, she may say, well, we need to make sure that we do this thing. And I'm going to say exactly because that ties back to our mission. Excellent job. Keep going with that. So it's just quick, it's fast, it's simple, but it's highly effective. Exceptional leaders always do this. Exceptional leaders lead in bursts of 10 to 15 seconds. So if you were on the call last week, I talked about a lady named Sally that I was working with several years ago. And this was kind of back when I was working in my assistant principal days. And the things that I would do with her would be just 10 to 15 seconds. I would go in, I would say something, I would compliment her, I would give her some adjusting feedback, and then I would leave. In 10 to 15 second statements, I was planting seeds, giving direction, giving encouragement, giving support, and then I was leaving. And what I was doing was very purposeful and specific. And that's what we as leaders need to be able to do with our direct reports. So always share the why and the how. The why being, this is why we do this thing. And the how is how I want you to do it. Now, you as the leader of this organization or maybe mid-level management, wherever you're at, are going to have some really particular ideas about what you're wanting your direct reports to do. And your direct reports may have fantastic ideas, and I would encourage you to listen to those ideas because you may have some great ideas, but there may be some greater ideas or some better ways to do things. And as a leader, one of the most powerful things you can do to gain the respect and trust of your direct reports is to let them run with an idea that they have. So if somebody comes to me and says, Todd, hey, I know you want me to do this ABC way, but I was looking at it and it's really more effective if we do it XYZ way. You know what? Let me think about that for a second. Okay. You know what? Yeah, go for it. Go for it. And empowering them to do that thing is going to make them feel valued, trusted and respected in their position. And if they feel valued, trusted, and respected in their position, they're likely going to work a lot harder for you. So that's sharing the why and the how. Now, it cannot be overstated. The why is important. And I'm a big person in this. I had a funny story. My youngest daughter, I joke around. I say a lot of jokes. So if you're new on the call, I like to have fun and yeah, just have fun. And I like to say that my youngest daughter almost lost her right to live in my house last weekend because she is now learning how to roll her eyes. That does not go in the Hendricks household. So after we had our serious meeting about her attitude, I was curious. I was like, her name is Mia. And I said, Mia, why did you roll your eyes? Because that's really more important. I want to know why you did the thing. That you rolled your eyes, yeah, I'm going to deal with that. You're going to deal with that. But why did you roll your eyes? That's the more important thing to me. Then she told me, well, because I didn't think it was fair that my older sister got to do this thing and then I didn't get to do it. Well, your sister's almost 18 and you're not even close to that. But that gave me some insights into what she was thinking and how she was thinking about this thing that I told her to do. So, fun little story, but the why is incredibly important. And I would always encourage you to share the why and the how with your people. Now, we're going to cross off a box right here, and I'm going to say the thing that every leadership coach in the world has ever said: promote open communication and trust with your direct reports. Now that we've said that, we have to get into the nitty gritty of it. That's going to look different for every single person's organization and business because of the culture that you've created and the structures that you have running in your business. So what does that look like? I don't know. What does it look like for you? You have to determine that. How do you promote a culture of openness, of communication, and trust? I know I have a friend of mine who just got a new job about 6 months ago, and not one of his fellow employees is even in the same state he is in because he is 100% remote. So how do you have a culture of open communication and trust when you never see the people that you work with and you only talk to the people you work for a couple times a week? So that's why you have to have a system of feedback that you can work with your people. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. But I want to dive a little deeper into helping your employees win. And again, we've talked about that before. It sounds kind of like rah-rah, like, yay, we're going to help each other win. But no, that's really important. And that's a really serious topic. So what does that look like? I want you all to think back, and for some of you, this might be more recent or this might be a long time ago, but think about when you were dating. Yes, that person that you fell in love with or whatever that may be, you sought out things to do for that person, right? Yep. You thought of nice things that you could do that they weren't expecting, right? Yep. You thought about their needs probably before your own, right? Yep. That can be what helping your teammates win looks like. Anticipate the needs of others and act on those things before they have a chance to encounter them themselves. And what that might look like in your office or your organization is maybe you're in a document or working on a project and you see that there's just this one thing that needs to be done, but it's not handled by your department. But it's for you to do if you can do it. And so you just handle that. It takes you 5 minutes to handle, and then the other team doesn't have to worry about it or come back to it. Is that allowed in your organization business? Maybe, maybe not. But if it's something that you can attend to and do for them, man, that's helping them win, right? Absolutely. If you come across something that is going to maybe be a stumbling block for a teammate or a direct report, and you just remove that for them, be like, hey, you know what? The copy machine is jammed up, and I know Janice is coming down here to use it in 5 minutes because she's going to be on break. Let me just take care of this right now. They don't have to know about it. But I would also encourage you to maybe let them know about it. Good deeds should not always be unsung heroes. If you're doing something nice for somebody, let them know. And you don't have to hold it over their head or brag about it or anything like that. But letting somebody know, like, hey, the copy machine was just jammed up. I know you were coming down here to use it. I took care of that. So, hey, there's a freebie for today, and make a joke about it or just smile, be nice about it. But that's a simple way to help somebody win. What is some other ways that you can help somebody win? Usually, we all have things going on in our lives that other people don't know about. And I talk about having an emotional intelligence, knowing where your direct reports or your employees are at emotionally. Now, if you have myself, who I might come into the office every day at an emotional 5, 5 out of 10, where I'm pretty even keeled and I'm going okay. But maybe my daughter Mia rolled her eyes at me right before I came to work, and I am hot about that. And I'm really upset, and I'm rolling in at an 8. And that's when you decide to give me some adjusting feedback. I'm probably emotionally not prepared for that. So knowing the needs of your employees and how you can help them. So if I walk in the door and you say, "Oh, Todd does not look like his normal even keeled self. He looks like something's bothering him." Hey, Todd, you okay? Mia just rolled her eyes at me for the second time this week, and I'm really frustrated about that. So I'm just trying to come down off that and trying to make sure that she makes it through the week. Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe that's all I needed. Maybe that's all I needed, just to get that off my chest and just to say it. I know some of you on this call now are also familiar with Jonathan Mast, who I did a call with yesterday, and he led a call a couple weeks ago where we talked about marketing and sales and dealing with customers who may not necessarily be happy with us. And one of the things that he said is, throughout his career, he has found that sometimes just letting the customer who's upset just say the thing that they're upset about is really all they wanted, because then he'll come back and say, "Okay, well, what would you like me to do about that?" And he said 8 times out of 10, most people say, "I just wanted you to hear it, and I wanted to say it." Okay. So being emotionally available for your people might be another way that you can help them win. So I want to move into addressing strengths and weaknesses, because that's incredibly important. You have to be able to address strengths and weaknesses for everybody that you are dealing with and working with. So this is where I'm going to talk about a feedback system. Having a feedback system is something that's very, very important. If you do not have a feedback system in place, I would highly recommend that you put that at the top of your priority list, whether you're the owner, the CEO, or whether you're mid-level management, but you still have direct reports. Having some way to communicate that in a way that is non-emotional to your employees or your direct reports is incredibly important. And here's what that might look like. And this is going to be one that I have used in the past personally that was incredibly effective. All my employees or my direct reports had a 15-minute meeting with me once a week. So that's 15 minutes out of their day once a week. And the meeting was structured very, very quickly. That's not the right way to say it. I guess the pace of the meeting went very, very quickly, and it was very structured. So they knew what to expect, and it was going to be the same thing every single time. So the meeting would begin. We'd have like a minute or two of pleasantries. How you doing today? Everything going okay? Good, great, fantastic. Okay, here's the project that we were working on, X, Y, and Z. How is that going? Great. Okay, do you need any support for that? And like literally, these things were scripted out for both of us. I would ask how the project was going. Great, or not so good. Okay. Then my job was to ask what support they needed, if any. Okay. Then we would move into adjusting feedback and positive feedback. And those were scheduled and structured into every single meeting. So it's like, okay, here's the feedback that I have for you this week that is adjusting or growth oriented. These things, 1, 2, and 3. And here are the things that you are knocking out of the park and doing extremely well. 1, 2, and 3. Fantastic. And I'm just making those numbers up arbitrarily. Sometimes it was just one thing of adjusting feedback and 3 things of positive, or vice versa. But the big thing about that was they were trained to receive that. It was non-emotional. And the purpose that we were doing that feedback in that way was so that they understood we are all trying to get better. This is not me being critical of you. This is me helping you get better at your job so that we could all get our oars pointed in the same direction. It took a little while. Some people were uncomfortable with that, because at the end of the meeting, I would also structure it in for them to say, say, is there any adjusting feedback or positive feedback that you have for me? Now, you don't have to give me any, because I know that can sometimes be awkward for a direct report to give their manager or their boss adjusting feedback or praise of any sort. But it was there if they wanted to take it. So I'm going to relate a story that happened during one of my meetings. And this meeting went off the rails, but it was fantastic. So one of my direct reports came in, and she was standing at my office door, and she said, "Hey, Todd, before we start the meeting, can I just close your door for a minute?" Yeah, sure. Go ahead. So she comes and she sits down, and she's like, "Todd, can I just cry in here for a minute?" Uh, yeah. Are you okay? She's like, "Yup, but I'm really stressed out. I got a lot of things going on at home, and I just feel like I need a good cry." Go for it. I'm going to turn around and do some email at my computer. You do what you need to do. And she did. She just cried at my desk, and I was doing email. And then she kind of said, "Okay, I'm pulled together now. I'm good." All right. So we went through and we did the rest of our meeting a little bit quicker because we didn't have as much time. And I wanted to get her back to what she was doing and be respectful of that 15-minute time block. But you know what that did? Man, did that build rapport between her and I, because she knew that she could trust me. She knew that I was a safe place for her to just kind of have an emotional moment. And that was really, really powerful for her. And our relationship, our professional relationship really, really grew from that. Now, I have since left that company, and just randomly on Facebook, I saw her, and I haven't had contact with her in probably 15 years. And she is now in the position that I was in when I was at that company. So, which is really cool. And I hope, and I don't know this, but I hope some of the things that I did with her, she can do that with her direct reports as well. I'm going to give you something that's a little bit technical. I'm going to look at my notes to make sure I got this right. Yes, there's a term called formative assessment. Now, this is educational theory. If you want to type that into Google, it is 2 words: formative assessment. Or if you want to ask Chat GPT what that is, it is a 6-step process. And I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, because that could be its own webinar, and maybe that will be in another couple weeks or so. But basically, the formative assessment process is exactly what every sports coach has ever done for the past 100 years in sports. They do a fantastic job of that. If you think about practice, and I don't know, I talked about this the other day. I have football on the brain, and it is not football season. Chris, I'm talking about American football, not European football. I have American football on the brain right now, and I don't know why. But if you think about a football practice, that is a constant cycle of the athletes doing their task, performing their task, getting feedback from their coach, positive or negative, then reassessing how they are doing, and then starting the cycle all over again. So that's a very reduced way of looking at that formative assessment process. But it's a cycle of assessment, feedback, performance, reassessment. And that is something that I use on a daily basis. You can do that in business. You can do that in education. You can do that in your marriage. You could do that with your kids. You know, sometimes your kids do something wrong, and you kind of holler at them about it. And then you think, "Oh man, I kind of went over the deep end on that." Or, you know what? No, I didn't handle that well. Or maybe I really handled that really well, and that's how I'm going to handle it next time. Anytime you are assessing your performance and then giving yourself some sort of reflective feedback, you are using the formative assessment process, and it's incredibly powerful. When you are addressing weaknesses with your direct reports, you are helping them win. Now, it doesn't sound like it, because, I've got to talk about their weaknesses. But if you talk about it as an area of growth, like, "Hey, Todd, you could really knock it out of the park next week if you did it this way instead of that way." Huh. Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll try that. I'll try that. Or you can be very direct and say, "Hey, Todd, you didn't do a really great job on this week. I want you to try doing it this way next week and see how that goes for you. If you need any support from me, I would be happy to help you." Okay, fantastic. I would also say, when you're addressing strengths, do that enthusiastically. but you have to be an emotionally intelligent person when you're doing that. Now, some people are words of affirmation people. If I say, hey, Todd, you're doing a great job. Oh man, that's just going to make me feel so good. Yes, excellent. Oh, that makes me good. My boss told me I'm doing a great job. There are other people who are not words of affirmation. And if you praise them, that actually makes them withdraw. And sometimes they will even self-sabotage. I'm going to give you a great example, and I bet most of you on this call have seen this in some way, shape, or form. Let's say you have a group of kids and you tell one of the kids, oh, you did a fantastic job. I can't believe what a great job you did. And they're just, oh, thank you so much. And they're just all happy about it. And then you have another kid that you want to encourage and you're like, hey, you did a really great job on that. And in 5 minutes, they are doing something wrong, maybe on purpose. Has anybody ever seen that? Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever seen that or experienced that. I want to just see how many people where you praise a kid and then they self-sabotage and then do something wrong on purpose. Yeah. Yeah, we've all seen it. Okay. Those people and kids are not words of affirmation people. And so this is how you handle that, because you still need to affirm them and give them positive feedback, but you do it. All right. Some of you are taking notes. I want you to look at my face on the screen right now. The words of affirmation people, you're like, great job. Awesome. They need to see your face. My youngest daughter, Mia, not a words of affirmation. So when I talk to her, I give her praise. I'll be like, hey, Mia, good job. Keep it up. Do it just like that next time. And then I walk out of the room. Flat. My face is flat. She still needs to hear it. And she still needs to know that she's doing the right thing. But if I just take the emotion out of my face and out of my voice, it's not as awkward feeling. And I used to work in schools. I was a teacher. I was an assistant principal. I've had these conversations with kids and I'll be like, hey, Mia, how come when I said that you did a good job, that made you feel weird? I don't know. It just made me feel weird, Dad. Okay. And I've had these conversations with students that I've talked with and they don't really know. I mean, and obviously they're kids. They might not be emotionally in tune yet enough to know that about themselves, but they can't describe why they feel that way. They just know that they do. Question, I see, how do you know what they need? We're going to get there. I'm going to say your name. Is Davia or Davia? Davia? Davia. Okay. Because yeah, I wanted to make sure I get that right. Names are important. So I'm going to get there, Davia. Provide training. This is the next major point. So I see a lot of people writing and taking notes. The next major point is providing training and giving them the skills that they need to be successful. This, again, make sure is pointing in the direction of your mission, vision, and goals, and is going to support the company. I have seen people who say, hey, you know, we're getting free training. I want to go get training on how to weld underwater. But we're a printing company. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And make sure the training is in line with what you are trying to accomplish as an organization and as a business. But if you also invest in training your direct reports, that shows that you value them. And that is another important thing when you're trying to be emotionally intelligent with your employees and your direct reports, is to know, they need to know that you value them enough to see them grow. And as leaders, they need to know that we value them enough to give them time to grow and develop. Sometimes that's personally, sometimes that's professionally. But in equipping employees with the skills that make them better allows them to be better for themselves, allows them to be better for each other on their teams, and ultimately allows them to be better for you and the direction of the company. Remember, when your employees get better, you get better, as long as you can help them point in the right direction. Now, this is especially important if you are a nonprofit or in the human services sector, because at that point, in my mind, and this is my opinion, but in my mind, if you are a nonprofit or in the human services sector, your job is people. Your job is to serve people. And whoever is working for you has to understand that mission. It has to be missional for you and the people that work for you. Because if you have somebody on the other end of your work who is depending on your work for something, it's not about your dollar amount. It's not about your bottom line. It's not about your marketing strategy or your sales call. It is about a person at the other end of whatever it is that you're doing that is relying on you for that service. So that can be part of your mission and vision. So you can have your mission statement, you can have your vision statement, you can have your goals, and then put a picture of Sally and Jim up there because they're the ones who are really depending on you. Now, the last major point, and I think this is probably one of the most important points, is as leaders, you have to get in the trenches with your people. And I'm going to give you a story back from when I was in college. Who remembers the store Sears? I know they're not a company anymore, but Sears, Roebuck and Company. Yes. That's where I worked at in high school and college, and I had a lot of jobs there. And we had store managers. And during my tenure at Sears, when I was living in New Jersey, we had a transition of store managers. Our original store manager was very professional, dressed to the nines every single day, as professional as you can get. Yes, ma'am, no, sir, that type of person. And they would come in, and I happened to be at that time during this transition unloading semi trucks. So when the semi trucks would come in, we'd unload them, get the stock all put away. And this store manager would come in and kind of point the finger and direct traffic and then leave. And we would kind of look at each other and be like, okay, we're not doing that because that doesn't make any sense. That's illogical for us to do it that way. We're going to just do it the way we've been doing it. Well, that store manager left, and we got a new store manager. And that store manager came in one hot July day, and we happened to have a semi full of air conditioners. And it was floor to ceiling, wall to wall air conditioners, and we had to unload all of these. And he came in, and we were like, hey, how you doing? Yep, I'm Todd, and this is Charlie, and this is John, and yep, and we're unloading the truck. And he's like, all right, so what's the plan here? And so we told him what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. And he said, all right, there's only 3 of you. And I said, yeah, but we'll get it done probably in another 5 hours or so. We'll get it all knocked out. Okay, all right, fantastic. He's like, all right. And then he took off his suit coat. He undid his tie, laid it over his suit coat, and said, give me a hand truck. You guys are going to need help. And then in his nice clothes, his nice slacks, and his nice shoes, for the next, he didn't stay there the whole time, but for the next half hour to an hour, he unloaded air conditioners in a 115-degree semi truck with us. Now, he never did it again after that, but we never forgot that. And so when he came in and he said, hey, guys, I know you're busy, but can you run out and do this thing for me over there? Yes, sir, we got you. No problem. Why? Because we knew he would be in the trenches with us. And that is an incredibly important thing for your employees to know that you will do for them. Celebrate with them. That's part of being in the trenches with them. I talk about water cooler conversations. And back in the day when you had water coolers in the office and you could go, step away from your cubicle and go get some water, and people would kind of congregate around the water cooler. That's a great time to just have conversation. Like, hey, Todd, I heard your daughter was looking at colleges over the weekend. And has she picked one out yet? Oh, no, not yet. Okay. All right. Just have those conversations that have nothing to do with business. But then when it comes down to business, hey, Todd, I know that your deadline for this is coming up at 4 p.m. and I know you're working hard on it. I want to make sure you get it done by 4 p.m. What can I do to help you? Maybe I say nothing. I got it. I'll be done by 3:45. I'll meet the deadline. No problem. Maybe I say, honestly, could you go to the copy room and make copies of this file for me? That would be incredibly helpful. Okay, I'll do it. Come back, set the file down, and off you go. When you're in the trenches with your direct reports or your employees, this allows you to do some really good things that, again, like I talked about earlier, can be done in 10 to 15 seconds, maybe even less. You can celebrate wins with them. Because if you're in the trenches with them, if you're working side by side, shoulders, and literally, I mean, in their physical presence, if you can do that and say, hey, wow, I really like how you filled out that form. That's perfect. Can I use that as an example for somebody else for like this new hire that we just got? Great. Thank you. How long did it take me to say that? 6 seconds? What did I communicate in that 6 seconds? I communicated that they're doing a great job. Their work was good enough to train a new hire. Okay. Small things. I can also coach them out of bad habits if I'm in the trenches with them. Hey, Todd, you see that on line 4 of that form? Yep, I want you to switch those two things. Yep, that's perfect. Yes, that's what I want you to do. Thank you so much. Now, I just gave adjusting feedback on something that they were doing negatively, but did it sound negative? No, it sounded positive because I was coaching them. I wasn't giving them direct feedback. I can also mentor them in new habits that I want them to have. Hey, Todd, see that on line 4, how you started doing it this way last week? Excellent. Can you now start doing that on line 7 and 8 as well? Because that's going to really streamline the process for us. Great. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. New skill. I affirmed them in what they did last week. I'm getting them to do that this week. I'm growing them in their capacity. And it took 10 seconds. Your staff is a living, breathing organism. And if you are in the trenches with them, if you're working side by side with them, even if it's just for 10 minutes, that makes you part of that organism with them. Now, I'm sure we have all worked under leaders who kind of sit in the ivory tower and point their fingers and give commands and never come down to the floor and work with us and know how things are really going on. I had an experience with this probably 6 months ago. I was talking with a leader who was constantly telling their direct reports, do it this certain way, do it this certain way. And then I stopped the leader and I was like, when was the last time that you had to complete that process? Have you ever worked on the floor? Well, no, I came in as management. Okay. What is the steps that they have to do before what you're telling them to do? And what is the step that they have to do after what you're telling them to do? Well, I don't really know. Okay. Don't you think that's important? You have to know what they're doing before and after the command that you gave them so that you can give them proper instructions. And if you don't know how to do that and you don't know what they're doing, is what you're telling them to do even relevant? I guess I don't know. Exactly. It has to be relevant. So what does that mean? That means you have to be present. Now, I understand that not all positions, management positions, owner positions, especially when we're working remotely so much of the time now, allows us to be physically present. But how can we figure out ways to do that and still make connections with our people? Maybe it's a Zoom meeting like we're doing right now. Maybe you have a weekly 15-minute Zoom meeting. Maybe Tuesdays is your direct report Zoom meeting time from 9 to 11. And if you break it up into 15 minutes, what is that? That's 3 hours, that's 12 meetings you can have in 3 hours. Maybe that's what you do. Maybe you have your managers have meetings with their direct reports, and then you just have meetings with your managers. That's another way to handle that. I've got a slew of ideas on that. We can get to that in question and answer time if you have more questions on that. So last thing I would like to leave you with is on that note of being in the trenches with your people. I have come into contact with 2 separate companies in the past 6 months where they have adjusted their management structure and given their managers time in the schedule blocked off to just hang out. And now I know that seems like a weird thing where time is money and we've always got to be working towards something. But these companies have decided that it is more important for their managers and their leaders to have a pulse on the community of their employees, on their staff, than to really get things done. And so what they do is they schedule 15 minutes where they just walk around and hang out every day. Depending on their schedule, sometimes it's 30 to 60 minutes. They make sure that they eat lunch in the break room with the employees. And then what they do is they never talk business. They never talk business. And oftentimes they just sit in the corner by themselves. And when they're sitting in the corner by themselves, looking at their phone or eating their, tacos from last night's leftovers, they're listening. And it's an incredible amount of information you can get from just listening to your employees talk about just their days, even just their days. Uh, one of the I guess he's the COO. The COO is in the break room doing that. He found out one of his employees was getting divorced. Had no idea. That is an incredibly big piece of information to know about somebody because it's quiet. They never knew it was going on. But now, being emotionally intelligent, when they ask for, hey, can I take 15 minutes? I've got to make an important business phone call that doesn't relate to work. Yes, absolutely. Or if they come in and they're all out of sorts or they're emotionally upset, you might have a better understanding as to why. And understanding is huge. So I want to open this up to you, all of you who are on this call. If you have questions or comments, or maybe you have a situation that you're not quite sure how to deal with and you would like some advice on, I'm going to open this up. You can either put it in the chat, or if you'd like to raise your hand, at the bottom of your screen, there's a little heart button that says react. If you click on that, you can click the raise your hand button, and then you can virtually raise your hand. It'll pop up in the screen and I'll see it and I can call on you. So if anybody has anything that they would like to ask or need advice on, or just share, feel free, put it in the chat or raise your hand. Don't worry, I won't call on you, but I may give you dad jokes. Davia, I see you. Go ahead. Why don't you unmute yourself? Go for it.
My biggest question is that I have 36 different personalities, and one doesn't work with the other, and you think you're being clear. Or I have 6 on my admin team. 3 are usually aligned, and the other 3 are usually aligned as well. And it could be any given day as how they hear something or how someone's taking something. I'm trying to figure out the best way forward with making sure that when I do give positives or thank yous and stuff, that they're not like the ah buts, or everybody's hearing it as a collective group instead of everybody hearing 6 different answers.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever asked them what it sounds like?
I've started to, and that's how I'm figuring out. My managers are usually all aligned and my leads are usually all aligned.
And then what you're saying is they don't always align with each other, the managers and leads.
Exactly.
Okay. When you are giving messages, I guess let me ask you this: is the flow of information you, management, and then leads?
No, I was doing it across the board as a whole, and then I started meeting with the individual teams. And then that created some animosity because some teams went over here and said, well, we heard this, and this team heard that, they heard that, but they don't realize each team is completely different because they're a different department. And it created some blowups in that regard until I had to announce that's why we have separate meetings, because everybody has different things. But I'm finding this is a lot. I can say a team-led company and I get 6 different answers. What does a team-led company mean to you? And it's really helped by doing that, because sometimes I think, because then it allows me to meet with each one and put it in writing as to what I think it needs to be so that we can be aligned.
Yeah.
But I can't do that all the time. I can't meet with every single person and make sure they're aligned with me. That's what I'm,
Yeah. Well, I maybe
Sorry.
this is why I have no, that's great. And maybe that's why I have football in the brain. And I'm not a huge football guy. I didn't play football. I'm kind of a I would have been squished. I would have been the bottom of the pile guy. But on a football team, there are multiple teams. You have the offense, you have the defense, you have special teams. They all meet and practice separately. And then they do come back together. I think one of the things that is important for any team that is set up separately like that is to have an understanding of what the other team is doing and why they are doing that. So the offense is doing all of their offense things, but it only works if they understand why the defense is doing what they're doing. And having the understanding of, okay, my managers are doing things this way and my team leads are doing things this way. Here's the reason why. Share the why. I did a video probably about 6 months ago talking about self-talk. And if every one of your employees was able to hear what you said in your head, not negatively, but having the mind of the CEO could be incredibly empowering and powerful for each employee to have, because then they know, oh, that's why we're doing this thing. Think about a cooking show. Whenever you watch a cooking show, you are spending 30 minutes watching a master chef put together all of these different flavors and ingredients and all these different things. And you're like, well, why did he put the garlic in first? Because the garlic has to steep in the oil. And I don't know, Chris, you can help us with some French cooking, maybe. The garlic has to steep in the oil before it gets hit with the chicken and, all this other stuff. There's reasons and rationales for everything. And sometimes our employees just need to know some of those reasons and rationales. And maybe it doesn't help them with their job, but it's like, oh, at least I understand why. Like Todd came into work really upset today. Oh, he was the one going through the divorce. Now I understand. I've got so much more empathy and understanding of that. I have nothing to do with that, but at least I understand why. And so I guess I don't know if that helps you at all, Davia, or not, but like having the teams understand the functioning of the other person and that, or the other team, and that it is different on purpose. Like, yep, you are hearing separate messages. They are different. They're similar, but they're separate and they're a little bit different because you have different roles, responsibilities, and duties, and they have to be done differently. So, yep, that's why we had separate meetings. Yep. And that's why I gave you this message and you this message, because it needed to be different. Even though your job is very similar, it needed to be different. Does that hit it all for you?
It does. It
Okay.
does. I have half a team that's offense. I have a half a team that's on defense. I already. It's funny you said that because Jonathan Mass said that to me the other day when I met with him.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
I bet he got that from me because he hates sports.
I bet. But I love football, so that makes total sense and explains why people explains how they're aligned, why my managers are one way and how my leads are a different way.
Mm-hmm.
It explains exactly how they can align easier than other people can. So
yeah, well, good. I'm glad that helped. Anything else?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I'm going to move on to Jasmine. I see you have your hand up. What's on your mind, Jasmine?
I just have one question about feedback. Do you think that sometimes, we'll do like anonymous feedback forms to have like a check-in? Do you think that feedback goes better when there's a face to it? They can say exactly how they feel, or is an anonymous form a better way to receive the
Excellent
feedback?
question. I only like anonymous feedback if it's positive. If it is negative feedback, and it's anonymous, I have seen that just be kind of like a dog somebody out session. like I don't like Todd. You did a horrible job on this, and I'm going to stick it in there because it's an anonymous way for me to throw a shot at you that doesn't really have any water to it, doesn't hold any water to it. So if you're going to give adjusting feedback, I would always say make it direct, make it non-emotional, and make it have a reason why. Like, okay, you need to do this better. This is why this needs to be done better. But I'm not mad about it. It just needs to be done better. And one of the things that I experienced, which was incredibly helpful, was before we implemented our feedback system, we modeled it and we role played it in front of our staff. And what that did was it gave them a chance to see it and say, hey, look, this is not emotional. This is what it's going to look like. This is what it's going to sound like. This is what it's going to feel like. Not emotional. It is growth oriented. And we train them to receive that so they understood, okay, when Todd tells me, hey, I need to do this better, it's not because he's mad at me, but he saw it as a deficiency and a weakness and a place where I could get better. And once we did that training and we really over communicated, like we really hit on that hard, like adjusting feedback is not emotional. It's not bad. We're not mad at you. We want to see you better because if you're better, I'm better, we're all better. So when I give you this feedback, it's to make you better. And that was once, and again, everybody's personality and emotions are a little bit different on that. Some people grabbed onto it right away and they're like, oh, yes, I can absolutely do that. That's fantastic. And other people were like, nah, I don't want you giving me any negative feedback at all because they emotionally couldn't handle it. Well, they learned because they were like, oh, all right, I guess it's not that bad. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Yes, that we do weekly meetings now, but I kind of want to throw in more of a cadence of positive, negative, and make it a sandwich. Because I think that sometimes they need the negative, not the negative, but the correctiveness of it. And I like them having every single week knowing that I'm going to say positive and I'm going to say the things we can work on too. So they can
Yes.
expect compare
And
for
if
it.
you front load that information, I'm huge on front loading information. If you front load that, expect this. This is what it's going to be. This is what it's going to look like and sound like. That's what it is. Then when they come in, they're like, oh, yeah, I can do that. That's not a big deal. That's my adjusting feedback. Fantastic. All right. Yeah, I can do that. Usually smooths things over quite a bit. Shannon, I see you have your hand up. What's on your mind?
I do, and it's kind of like I'm sliding a little over to the side, but since no one was asking, I figured I would jump in. So I have a small team and I have a child care center, and usually we have 12 to 18, 20 staff members depending on the season. And most of my staff members are adult women who have worked for me for a long time. And some of them have left, for varying reasons and come back. And when they come back, sometimes it's easy to implement change because they see, oh, something changed while I was gone. But for the people who have stuck around, I've also been hanging around with Mr. Mast, and in the process of changing some things that way that function, or that function a little differently, I've also started this year, like we're finally doing online enrollment. We're doing a lot. We changed our payment system. I made a lot of changes this spring, and they really only affect a small amount of my staff, but I'm trying to positively make the changes in everything that's going on, but I get pushback and I take it personally. And
Mm,
so part of it is I want to not react. I mean, I'm handling it all professionally, but on the inside of me, I just want to see, okay, this is from people being a little insecure with new systems. They like the way they've been doing things, even if they weren't the way that they were supposed to be doing them on the books. We're bringing in new people for summer, and every year I have a hard time because they're copying staff that are not doing things the way I designed them to be done. So I'm trying to tighten up my ship without being a giant pain in the neck to my staff. And I also don't want to come across as being, you know, too militant. And so that's one of the reasons why I hopped on, the series you're doing, because I'm trying really hard to communicate effectively. But I understand how difficult it is for staff when you come in and make sweeping changes. That's what it feels like. They're like, nothing I was doing was right. And now she's changing everything and everything was fine. So if you have any recommendations on a way, because this next 30 to 60 days before summer camp starts, when we then have 150 kids in the building, everyone has to be doing things correctly, or I'm
mm.
going to lose my mind. And I don't want to be running around behind people, kind of what you and Davia were talking about. Like, I don't want to be giving those corrections on the backside. I would rather try and get everybody moving forward together. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you have in mind already the changes that you're going to make?
Oh, yes, I have them, and we've been trying to make, those changes in small ways. But as new staff are coming in that are getting trained for summer, I'm realizing I still have some staff members that are holding on to old things and not following protocols, not, using the right scripts for phone calls when we're talking to parents, being a tiny bit lazy about communications and things when they have specific. And so the new people see that. And although I don't want to be, correction Cassie behind everybody. I want the new people to see what I'm trying to do and do those things. But I want the old people to be following those protocols too without me looking like a hard ass all the time. I have
Yeah.
reasons. I'm willing to explain them. But then at the end of the day, it's kind of like my company for 19 years. If I said green crayon, use the green crayon. Why are we arguing? You know?
Right. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Do you have any people who are kind of like right on the fence? Like, man, they're still doing it the old way, but I know that they're almost to the new way. Do you have anybody like that?
I do. And I actually have, instead of doing our big meeting with everyone where, because we're kind of an informal setting, I get too much feedback at a meeting that could have been an email that should have been a text message. And so what happens this year, I'm doing 15-minute meetings with each person one-on-one. And one of the young ladies that I just did a meeting with the other day, I could tell that she's trying to do things the new way, but she also is dealing with the problem is we have one director and me, everybody else is kind of in the same line.
Mm,
So if you're standing next to somebody who's doing things one way, it's hard to necessarily, do things the right way.
yeah. What I have seen, if you've got somebody who's really, really close, and this, you're going to have to be, this could be tricky, but if
Right.
you take somebody who is stuck in the old way and you put them in charge of training one new hire the new way,
Nice. Yeah.
then it's like they have to tell them the new way. They have to give them the whys of the new way. That gives you an opportunity to say, hey, we've got this new hire coming in. Can you show them this new form, this new way to do this thing? And then can you explain to them why we're doing it this way? Because then you're empowering them to do something, but you're also training them in repetitions. And just
That's
like
a great
riding a
idea.
bike and tying a shoe, it's just reps. You just got to get it in. You just got to do it enough times. And it's like, oh, now that's the new thing. Oh, now that's just our thing now. Right.
Right.
So, but I would
Yeah.
not do that with somebody who is,
I haven't, my
died
old
in a
director,
old way.
right. My old director is a nurse and she still works for us part-time. And she was with me for 12 years and one of my closest friends, which was part of the problem. She is holding on to old things like grand death, and I can no longer put her in that position, even though people look to her that way. I cannot allow because she goes and does the old way. So, I see that. Like I should
And-
take some of the other people that are on the edge and put them in charge of someone. So maybe we
Yeah.
can start streamlining those
Yep.
processes forward.
And then you're not doing it because that's going to make you frustrated the more that you have to do it. And then there's also, I learned this phrase, and you probably are familiar with this, nice nasty. Let's just
Mhm.
say her name is Sally. We'll just make up a name. I'm making up Sally as
Mhm.
the name. Hey, Sally. Yeah, that's not the way we do that anymore, right, Sally?
Right.
I'm smiling. Serious as a heart attack. Thanks, Sally.
Yeah,
New way, Sally. Appreciate it. Thanks. We still going out to lunch? Great. Okay.
exactly.
See you then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then 10 minutes later, you circle back. Yep. Just making sure. Great. Thank you, Sally. Great. Are you getting the pulled pork or like,
Yeah.
again, did you see what I like? That was a
Right.
15-second interaction that I had with you, but I had two different feedbacks that I gave. Both of them were
Right.
clear as crystal.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much. I think
right.
that's going to be helpful.
absolutely. Pepper, you're up. What's on your mind, Pepper?
Okay, so we talked about not being afraid to like get in the trenches. Well, I love the trenches. So my question for me as a leader, how do I not get stuck in the trenches with them? Because I will go all in and stay there with them. So I need to make sure I can still do that, but also kind of get out so I can do my admin stuff too.
Yep. Schedule it and pre-plan it. So like I talked about my store director who helped me unload air conditioners for 30 to 45 minutes. Like looking back, that was 100% on purpose. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was new. He wanted people to be on his side. He had to establish rapport quickly. He knew he was going to sweat and change his shirt probably when he was done. But that was a 30-minute block. And then he had our loyalty for the rest of his time there. So pre-plan it, be selective and specific with the things that you jump into the trenches with. If you're looking at a project that's going to take 3 hours, what part of that is a 15-minute section that you can jump in and do? Because you should not be doing the 3-hour project. Now, let's say, the whole team is behind on a deadline. The deadline is 3:00 on Friday afternoon, and it's like all hands on deck. We need to get this done. Okay, I'm going to clear my Thursday afternoon schedule, and I'm going to give you 2 hours. And you put me to work. You tell me what you need me to do, and I'm going to do it. But that's what I'm going to give you. So you have to have in mind the time commitment that you're willing to do because you have other things that you have to attend to as well. And you are doing this as a support and a help, not as I'm doing this for you. No, I'm giving you additional assistance. I'm not doing it for you. So you as the leader have to know, all right, yep, I can commit 30 minutes to this. Sure. Or I got 10 minutes. How about I go get coffee for everybody? And sometimes that's the most important thing. I watched I don't know, there's a new movie out, or not new movie, but a couple months ago, there was a movie came out that was called The Forge. If you haven't seen it, it's a really good movie. And they were up against a deadline. They had to meet a manufacturing deadline, and all the people were doing their things, and they were doing them at a really high level. And then there was the accountant, and he was there with them, and he didn't know how to run the machines. He didn't know where the stock was. He didn't know how to load the truck. So what did he do? He got coffee, water, and snacks, and he just kept that cycle going. That's what he could do. That's what he was good at, and that's how he could contribute. So that's what he did. So, Davia, back up. Let's go. I'm excited.
Well, I want to feed off of what Pepper said. When you know it's your job to do it and you need to delegate it, say training an employee, I need them to work with another employee because they have better expertise at something. So when I'm handing off the training to someone else, it is a good thing to do to say like, hey, what have you got on your plate that I can help you with? Because you're adding more to someone else's plate. Is it okay to be in the trenches that day, with them?
I think so. Yes. Now, if it is a regular duty that they like if Todd's the trainer and I know that once new hires come on, that's my job to do, then I have to just figure that scheduling out. But if you are giving somebody an extra duty that's kind of like a one-off, a one-time thing, and you're like, hey, I know this is going to be a lot, so let me take something for you. Man, that's a great way to build rapport. Can you do that every single time? Maybe not. But if you do it once, at least they know you're willing. Because maybe your schedule doesn't allow for you to help when their schedule needs it. Or maybe you find somebody else who can help. Davia, I'm going to ask you to train that new employee. I have an out-of-town conference that I have to go to, but I know Pepper's got a little extra time. Hey, Pepper, would you be willing to help Davia with this for like an hour on Tuesday morning? Pepper says, yes, great. Hey, Davia, Pepper's going to help you on Tuesday morning. I can't, but I found you some help. Now, don't ask Pepper in front of everybody like I just did.
Right. No, I have a team member that I know that we talked about that, and that was great. But I also see that team member constantly still helping in the weeds. And I know that she's going to get tied up there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to call her out in here, but I want her to really hear this, that helping one time builds that trust. You don't necessarily have to keep falling back into it. So that's why I want any clarification.
And
it's not Pepper, by the way. So.
Okay. Well, and just like, when if you take all the kids to the pool and then it's time to get out of the pool, there's always that one kid who keeps their head underwater as long as possible because they can't hear you tell them to get out of the pool. That was me as a child. Sometimes you just have to grab them and be like, hey, I got to pull you out. I know you are doing a great job helping, and be positive about it. Like, you are really building rapport with your employees. Thank you for getting in the weeds with them, but I am pulling you out of the weeds and I'm going to put you back over here where I need you because that's where you are the most effective. And I talked about this on last week's phone call or on the Zoom call. A football team, you don't want a wide receiver on the offensive line because there's like a 200-pound difference there. We are in the positions that we are in for a reason, and we have jobs to do because we're good at those jobs. We need to stay at those jobs. Can we help in other jobs? Sure. Every now and again, there's a trick play where the offensive lineman catches a 5-yard pass and runs for 5 yards, and everybody goes crazy because it's a one-time thing. Sure. Yep. That can be good. But is it a regular occurrence? No. So as leaders, we have to know when we can pull people in and push people in, or pull people out or push people in. Like, hey, Davia, I'm going to push you into that because, oh man, you used to do that job and you were excellent at it. Can you help them for 30 minutes? And then in 30 minutes, okay, I am pulling Davia back out. I need her over here. Thank you. Excellent job. And just be hands-on. Just be hands-on like that. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. See Jasmine shaking her head no. All right, got you, Jasmine. Excellent. Well, I'm gonna put my TidyCal. Oh, there it is. I'm gonna put my TidyCal back in the chat. If anybody wants to book a call with me, if I could offer you some one-on-one coaching, That's a way to get in contact with me there. I hope you have found this helpful. I hope you have found this valuable. I am also looking at, and this is just a little plug for myself, but I'm also looking at starting an online community, probably going to launch that in May. And that would be kind of like weekly calls, diving in a little bit deeper, with the intent of those calls being personalized coaching, where it would be mostly Q&A and not so much, I guess, curriculum given from me. But that's going to be, I'll have more details on that in the coming weeks. So if that is all, I want to thank all of you for joining me today. Thank you for your participation, your questions. And then I hope to see you next week. I will release the topic for next week's call, probably on Monday. That's kind of what I've been doing. And so you'll see that on Facebook. I'll also send out the email, and then also the replay of this call will go out later this afternoon. You'll receive that via email as well. So thank you all for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Have a great day.